Hello! Happy March. Let's talk about February so we can go into the new month with a clean slate. February was a pretty good month for me. I finished a trilogy that I started in 2022. I reconnected with Stephen King, my favorite author. I discovered that I really enjoy short stories, and I finished my first manga. So that's a lot to unpack. In February, I read 3 full-length novels, 1 novella, 1 work of nonfiction, 6 short stories, and 10 volumes of manga. Of the 5 priority reads I had planned for February, I finished 3 of them, 60%, not half bad. That's why for March, I'm kind of abandoning having a very large, extensive TBR because I'm trying to read more in line with my mood for this month. Not a bad little bunch, a nice little plethora of reads. The 3 novels I read in February were all works of science fiction, which is slowly becoming my primary genre. That's kind of the mood I've been in for the past several months. One of them was a work of classic science fiction, Flowers for Algernon. This book tells the story of a man who is very unintelligent, goes through an experimental procedure which makes him a genius. Lots of talk and themes about isolation, intelligence, human nature, human limits. And it's just very heartbreaking, tear-jerking. Tears were in my eyes, pretty depressing. I thought I would cry. I'm surprised I didn't. But I understand why this book is so highly acclaimed. If you loved Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, you'll love this book. Those are the 2 classic books I would link together. The 2 works of modern science fiction I read was Limited Wish and Dispel Illusion by Mark Lawrence, the second and third installment of his Impossible Times trilogy. I read the first installment in 2022, One Word Kill. It was okay. Mark Lawrence is perhaps my second favorite author. And it was just bugging me that I didn't finish this trilogy. So I went back, finished the last 2 installments in February, and I have a very positive opinion of the trilogy. The second installment was great. The third installment was amazing. Ended in such a good way, such a strong feeling of catharsis. I can't wait to do a series review on the channel shortly for this trilogy. But yeah, definitely snuck up on me. The 1 novella I read in February was actually the last read of the month. I just finished it a few hours ago. And that was Shawshank Redemption by Stephen King. Perhaps his most popular, successful novella. I thought this was just a prison escape story. It was much more than that. It was one of Stephen King's most political works. And if you're new to the Stephen King bandwagon, like I am, I'm very much a new Stephen King fan. I always read the reviews for his newer works. There's those old school constant readers who are constantly talking about how Stephen King's super political, how he never used to be that way, and no. This is a very political work. This would be considered left-leaning even today. It's just such a biting critique of the prison industrial complex and the society that kind of built the prison system. It was just incredibly moving. If you have people in your personal life, people you love that serve time on the other side, this book will definitely be very jarring and triggering for you. Just beautiful. It's a story about hope, redemption, and yeah, there's a daring escape. Don't want to spoil too much, but definitely worth your time. The 1 work of nonfiction I read was Rick Rubin's The Creative Act. This is basically a book that kind of gives his meditations, his thoughts on the artist's journey. He has little tips about how to foster your creativity, how to be a professional artist, how to block out the haters and the critics to kind of find your own distinct voice. It was very moving, very inspiring. I understand why he's been such a successful producer and musician because this book just had so many gems. I'm actually getting it back from the library so I could highlight some passages and write it down in my journal because I really wish I would have slowed down when I read this the first time. Definitely recommend it. But perhaps the most interesting development and discovery I had in February was I love short stories. Historically, I've definitely preferred to read longer works. Big chunky boys, big doorstopper books, and long immersive series where I don't get the catharsis I want until hundreds, sometimes even thousands of pages down the line. But there's something compelling, something comforting about reading a short story that's completely resolved in an afternoon, in less than 100 pages. So I picked up one of Stephen King's short stories, finally. I've been reading Stephen King for years, but I never gave any of his short stories a try. And objectively, you could argue that his short stories are more successful than his novels in terms of adaptations being made of them. The first short story I picked up was Riding the Bullet. I liked that one a lot, so then I picked up Children of the Corn. That was very creepy, a little underwhelming. So then I read 3 more of his short stories, and I was like, I really like Stephen King short stories. They go from wild, like The Lawnmower Man, to introspective and depressing, like The Woman in the Room. It's just such a wide array of skills Stephen King has. He's always an author that constantly finds ways of surprising me. And he's just such a dynamic author. I can't recommend Stephen King enough. I also picked up a short story from Madeline Miller called Galatea. It's a feminist retelling of the Greek myth of the sculptor who prays to the goddess Aphrodite to bring his sculpture to life so he can marry it. This short story takes place after that miracle, and the relationship is abusive. It's a feminist retelling, so it's going to be jarring. It's going to make you uncomfortable because that's kind of the point of feminist literature. It's revolutionary. It's supposed to make you change your mind about something that's been discussed for all of history. And in that respect, Madeline Miller did a very good job, but I wasn't the biggest fan of it. But yeah, 5 short stories I loved. 1 I was just about. Not too bad. Of the 10 volumes of manga I read 1 volume of Attack on Titan, 1 volume of Ouran High School's Host Club, and then I got distracted by a newcomer, a manga I had never heard of before, a manga that just surprised me and completely captured my attention. And that manga was Pluto. It is a retelling of Astro Boy, but instead of being like an adventure story about a robot who saves the world, it is a thriller murder mystery about someone who's hunting down all of the world's great, powerful robots, and it just had me hooked from volume 1. Volume 7 and 8 were my favorites, but volume 2 made me cry. Perhaps it was volume 1. Just a manga series that gave me all the spectrum of emotions. I just felt everything with this series. It ended a little bit rushed, a little bit anticlimactically, but very rarely am I so captured by a story. And I'm just so thrilled that this was the first manga that I finished, because only 8 volumes, so it's short and sweet, but there's just so much emotional depth. And it was very nice. In February, I uploaded only 12 videos, but that's not a bad number, just not the numbers I'm trying to reach. I need to average about 3.8 videos a week to reach my 2024 goal of 200 videos for the year. But March should definitely catch me up, because the goal for March is to upload a video for every day. Most of them will be shorts, but March will be madness. I'm glad that February is in the rearview mirror. I enjoyed it immensely, but I think March will be even better. I'm excited for the challenge. I'm excited for the great stories I'm going to discover, and I think it's going to be a good time. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.